Welcome to part two of our lecture on Michelangelo. Surrounding the main scenes are prophets who predicted the coming of Christ. These are known as the Sibyls in the Old Testament. Supporting every subject and scene are realistically painted architectural elements and nude figures who react to the scenes they frame. The Sistine ceiling contains more than 300 figures, all in an incredible variety of poses and actions, and all depicted as fully rounded three-dimensional forms, as one would expect from the hand of a sculptor. A suspicious man, Michelangelo feared that other artists were conspiring against him, and worried that Pope Julius II favored the more pleasant and cultivated Raphael, who was also working at the time on commissions in the Vatican. Let me tell you, it's a miracle that this project ever got finished because Pope Julius II was a nasty human being, and Michelangelo could also be extremely difficult to work with. There were a lot of negotiations between Michelangelo and overseers within the Vatican as far as what he was painting and how he was going to paint it and how all this was going to work out. There's a famous story, I don't know if it's true or not, that at one point the Pope was allowed to come in to the Sistine Chapel and see the progress that Michelangelo was making and discuss the painting project with him, which only ended up in Michelangelo chasing the Pope around the Sistine Chapel, uh, threatening to beat him up if he caught him. You got to imagine how powerful the Pope is. The Pope arguably is the most powerful person in the world. So to treat him like that, yeah, absolutely amazing, but interesting. In fact, the Pope did pay Raphael significantly more of the tapestries he designed to be hung in the Sistine Chapel than for the painting of its ceiling. However, Julius II, while reputed to be impatient, cooperated with just about all of Michelangelo's requests. Special scaffolding was built to his specifications. Pigments he required were imported from Turkey. It is believed that he hired 13 assistants, though he was notoriously difficult to work with and typically did almost everything himself. No one else was permitted in the chapel while Michelangelo was at work. While it is filled with philosophical and religious references, generally the story of Michelangelo tells over the length of the ceiling is the movement to pure spirit from the physical. He began painting in reverse chronological order. The first important scene shows Noah, his spirit numbed by alcohol, naked before his children and ridiculed by them. The next scene is the flood, the torrents of rain and water sweeping the earth. Michelangelo realized after this scene that he had underestimated the effects of the height of the ceiling and began painting larger figures, starting with the expulsion from Eden. Notice the musculature on Eve's body on the left. She's seated and taking fruit from the serpent. Very muscular body. As a matter of fact, if we switched out her breasts, it would be hard to tell her from any muscular man. But this is the mass and girth with which Michelangelo paints his figures. After that comes the creation of Adam, the most famous of the scenes, where a powerful and compassionate God, who resembles the ancient god Zeus, brings a still weak Adam the spark of life. I think what's humorous about this is if you look directly underneath the left arm of God, you have Eve, who is kind of being very shy and cautious and whatever, as she gets her first look at Adam. There are these television shows, the 48-hour fiance and all that. But can you imagine being introduced, the only woman ever to be introduced to the first man, and you have no choice. That is going to be your life partner, and that is it. So it is showing that there's a little bit of reticence going on there. The creation of Eve shows her pulled from the side of a sleeping Adam by a simple gesture of God. Moving back rather in time, we are shown God racing back and forth across the heavens in creating the sun, the moon, and the planets, and congregating the waters. The climax of the ceiling is the first moment of creation, the separation of light and darkness. As you can imagine, this masterpiece had a profound effect on the artists of the Renaissance. Perhaps the biggest effect was on the younger Raffaello Santi, the artist we call Raphael. Great. The ceiling suffered great damage over 500 years. Um, from the settling of the building to perhaps uh, smoke from candles rising up to the ceiling. And in the 1980s, there was a Japanese uh, video production company that offered to pay for the restoration of the ceiling frescoes entirely if they could be given solo rights to film the restoration. And this was going to cost millions and millions of dollars. The Vatican said yes, and a lot of people, art historians included, did not agree that it should have been done at this time. They believed that technology would be better and that there were things going on with the ceiling that we really could not tell if they were Michelangelo's plan um, or if it was damage caused through the years. One bone of contention is that supposedly there were wine stains on the ceiling. And they said, well, obviously, this is from people trying to clean off the candle smoke and rubbing it with cloths with the wine on them. And others said, no, this is at a time where artists could not go to the art supply store and buy their own paint. They were making their own paint. And it's quite possible that Michelangelo used wine to darken some areas of paintings. And who's not to say he didn't even use candle soot to do the same thing? So, big bone of contention. But that is it for the second part of our Michelangelo lecture.